Welcome back to another episode of The Black Path. I'm Anthony, and today we have Jona Peterson, colloquially known as, with us to talk about some knowledge, but a little background on Jona. Jona's not even first-generation American, right? Born in Mexico, black belt in jiu-jitsu, business owner, all-around modern-day philosopher. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's considered, would it be considered first generation?
No, your kids. Your kids are first
They're
generation.
first generation?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess technically that would be because I was born in Mexico.
Yeah. Well, let's start there. So you were born in Mexico, and how old were you when you came here?
I was 2 years old when I came here. And it was actually, it's a funny story because I talk to my dad about it all the time and talk shit because my mom was pregnant over here. And then he had this, grandiose idea that it would be better if I was born Mexican. so he took my mom back to Mexico, had me born in Mexico, and then we lived over there for 2 years, like basically in like obviously I don't remember, but it's like the ghettoest fucking place and like just a shitty.
Was it in TJ?
Yeah.
But your family's not from TJ, right? They're from further south.
Well, originally my dad is from Michoacan, but his family, he didn't grow up there. So he was brought over here to TJ, and he grew up in TJ. And then he came to the United States, met my mom here, and she's originally from Nayarit. So they met here, got married in the United States, and then during that time when my mom was pregnant with me, we ended up moving back.
Let's jump in right there. If for somehow you see this, and you're in the United States, and you're going to have a kid, and you're Mexican and you want to go back, don't.
Well, I think nowadays...
Stay, and then go back later.
I think nowadays it's kind of like the general consensus that people do that now.
Yeah.
But back then, I don't know if it wasn't as difficult, I would imagine. Because during that time, there was an amnesty during that time that had something to do with farmers. And so a bunch of people were able to get their documentation legally. And it was through that method. Well, not all of them were what do they call those? Like, I guess agricultural work.
Yeah, migrant farmers.
Yeah. So all those people were here, and through that clause that was created during that time, a lot of people, like my uncles and everybody that was already here, was able to get their
paperwork.
documentation.
Yeah.
And so when that ended up happening, when we went back and I was born there, and I came back, that was not a thing for me.
Oh, okay.
So I was undocumented until I was 26 years old.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing to navigate. So how did you navigate that, like having your early jobs and stuff? We don't have to get details, but like so when you get a job, you have to have a social security number, a social security card, and stuff like that. How old were you when you started working?
18.
Yeah. So but let's go back before that. How did you go to school?
So, but school doesn't require any of those documents. So you can come to school and you can enlist your kid into whatever elementary. Well, at least back then you could, and I imagine still you can because all the kids are still going to school. So I came in here and then I grew up, and so I went to kindergarten just like a regular kid, and I went through the entire through 12th grade and graduated. And the only difference is that you're not able to have any of the I think nowadays they changed it to where now you can have a California driver's license.
Yes, yeah.
But before you couldn't. So you actually needed a social security to have a driver's license, and I didn't have that. So I didn't have a driver's license until I was 26, until I was able to get that documentation.
Wow.
And so basically it's like playing life but on hard mode, because there's a lot of limitations that you have. And then when it comes to work, a lot of times, especially when it comes to construction, the low end construction, because if you try to get into like high, like you try to get union or you try to get anything that's worthwhile, you're gonna need that documentation because they e-verify everything. But the lower level private,
just give them what you got.
It's just but you do have to have it. Yeah. So what you do, I don't want to throw everybody into the bus, but I mean it's fake. Yeah. Anyway, so what you have to do
allegedly,
you go to LA, you have a picture cut out the size of whatever is supposed to be on the ID. And then you give it to a dude, you pay him. I think back then it was like $250. And then he disappears and he comes back with an ID and the social security that has a random number that I don't know where it fucking comes from. But obviously the number doesn't match with your name, but you have something in your hand that you can present now when you go get
to get a job.
And so what you do is that you go, and this is the part that a lot of times people don't understand when it comes to undocumented workers, is that for most jobs, you do have to provide some kind of documentation, which means that you are paying taxes. Yeah. It's like you're working a regular job. The only difference is that when it comes to the end of the year, you don't get credit for it.
Yeah. I want to talk about that separately. We'll probably talk about that towards the end or the middle. But you said something right there. It's like living life on hard mode. Yes. So when you're undocumented, you have a small amount of options you can do to make a living. It seemed like going through high school is pretty easy, right? Except for not being able to have a driver's license. But then when you start working, the options are pretty low. It's like entry level at a restaurant. It's day labor or hard labor, going to work in the farms and the fields. And it's all like lower end things. And I think that's probably what shaped you to be who you are. But also it helps you grow as a person. Like a lot of my family, not anyone close to generations of me, but generations before that, they were all farmers too. We just weren't migrant farmers because my family's actually from the United States. The border jumped us, so they were here first, and then the border moved and made them Americans naturally because they were already here. Right? But yeah, I think that's something to think about when, especially if people are looking down like on migrants or like immigrants or people coming from other countries, like. Yeah, I think we want people to be here legally and try to do their best, but this country wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the immigrants.
And then also, I also fell into a different batch, I think, than because you have the people that everybody frowns upon that jump or come over or crossing whatever way they can, and then they're here and then they work, But then you have the children that are brought. Yeah. You didn't make that.
Yeah, you didn't have a choice.
You're just here.
Yeah.
And so a person that has lived in Mexico for a certain amount of years, mostly through their childhood and into their adulthood, and then they come over here, there's a transition there. Versus when you are brought as a young kid, you don't know anything else.
Yeah.
And you also don't have anything to fall back on because you don't even know life over there. So it's like you're caught in this weird limbo where you don't have the resources available to you over here, but also you don't know what it's like to live over there. Yeah. And so you basically feel like you're an American, but you're not really an American. Yeah. And so it leaves you in that weird stage. And yeah, it's hard because it's depending on how long it takes you to get that documentation, because there's not really
it's not a path for it.
There's not a real clear path for it. And that's another thing that a lot of people talk about, where it's like, well, just do it the right way. And don't you think that if it was that easy, everybody wants to do it the right way, but there's just not really a way to, unless you marry a citizen, or unless you have not even what do they call asylum? Yeah, not even that. Only some countries had that, and I don't think that's even a thing anymore.
It's not. It ended. So there used to be something here called DACA, and that's over. So anybody here that's on DACA, you have the ability to re-register for it, but it ends.
I was part of that.
Yeah.
So I was part of that because that included all the kids that were brought. Yeah. And so during that time, you were given, I think it was a work permit of some kind. Yeah. And then after that, you were able to work or whatnot. You know what? No, I wasn't part of it. My brother was.
Was he?
Yeah, he was part of that.
Your brother's younger or older than you?
He's younger than me by about 2 years.
Was he born here?
No,
he was born.
No, it was the same thing. So me and my brother were both born in Mexico, and then my two younger sisters were born here. Oh, okay. So, but yeah, it just it's you don't really think about it because it's your reality. It's like, I don't have a license. I don't have this. This is my limitations, and I have to exist within this bracket. Yeah. In a country where you're not completely able to merge yourself into it because you have those limitations. Right? Yeah. And in my case, so I got out of high school and I went straight into construction, and I went into framing because that was one of those ones. You take your documents, you turn them in, and then these guys. Well, I saw a TikTok one time, a guy breaking it down, and it made sense. He said that when you do that as a company, you send documentation. All that the government does is send a letter to you and say, hey, this doesn't match. They don't tell you fire this dude. They don't tell you anything, because obviously people need to work and all these things need to keep moving. So it's like a weird gray area where you are a functioning member of society, but at the same time they want to keep you there because you're pouring into you're paying taxes and you're pouring into it, but you're not getting anything in return. Yeah, and it's good for the government.
It's good for the government, and it's a lot of times people don't qualify for any of the government assistance either. So when you have a fake Social Security number, you can't really get on government assistance. No. I think that's a fallacy that people are talking about.
It is, yeah.
About a lot of migrants coming here and then getting on Social Security or getting whatever. Some of them are able to get it, but the ones that are able to get it are here legally, or they have really good false paperwork.
Or the children of those people are able to get it and not them themselves.
Yeah. But yeah, that's so you started off doing construction, right when you got out of high school, or?
Yeah, well, I told myself I was going to take some time off, but I'm really restless. So when I got out, there was really nothing else to do. I was going to take a year off. I ended up doing 3 months, and then I started working, and I fucking hated it, dude. Like that that line of construction it wasn't.
You never wanted to go to college?
There was not really an option there for me to go to college, and also I'm not really good at school, so it would have been a waste of time and money.
Which is super surprising. Jonah and I are really good friends, and we talk constantly. And if I was to guess, I would guess that you were highly college educated, especially in philosophy.
No,
Yeah.
no, I like learning, and so I go about it in my own way, and I absorb a lot of information. But it's not like through a secular system that I listen to it. But my buddy one time told me, my buddy Kevin, he because anytime that you share something or say something, you always put a little caveat on it that I'm not educated. I don't have this placard on the wall. Yeah. That it gives me the qualifications to be giving you this advice. So take it as you will. But he told me that it was the wrong way of thinking about it, because let's say you're a type of person that wants to get it, like let's say you wanted to be a counselor or you wanted to be like a therapist or something. You're going to need to understand, human psyche. You're going to need to understand personalities. You're going to need to understand all these. And so you're going to force yourself to go to a classroom and learn all these things. And at the end of forcing yourself to do that, you're going to get a placard that goes on the wall. Yeah. But then there's people that just take interest in certain subjects because they're interesting to them. And so, like me, I take interest in things and I learn a lot about them because I want to know about it. Yeah. Right. So then you get to get versed in different things, and then so you understand things that you didn't go to school for, but the information is out there.
Yeah.
And so
especially nowadays.
Yeah. So it's like if you can watch college lectures every single day on YouTube and listen to all these things. The same shit that they're listening to over there. Yeah. You can listen to it, just that you're not going to get anything.
You don't get any paper, but also a lot of people go to school to try to. Especially when you go to normal college, when you go get your bachelor's degree. Getting a bachelor's degree is just an audition to get into a master's program, to graduate school, just to show that you could show up when you don't absolutely have to, right? And I would say that when you learn at an institution, you learn how someone taught them. Mm-hmm. You don't learn like all the nuance and the real world stuff, and I think that's where people like you who think deeply about things have better thoughts and better takes than people that go to school. Because if you go to school, they're going to say Nietzsche said this or whoever said that, and then that's canon. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. But when you think about it and learn it, you have the ability to shape and change your ideas, and you drill down to what you think might be right. None of us are right, but what might be right for that situation, or what we might perceive as right in the correct situation. Yeah. I think people that are educated, so-called, on the streets usually have both sides. They'll have like the traditional education, and then they'll have like the street smart education. I think that goes a lot further than just college educated people with paperwork.
Yeah, and I think that also, if you have to have a mentality that's open enough to be wrong. Yeah. Right. Because a lot of times I would imagine, I'm not going to say 100%, but I would imagine the paper on the wall is going to make you rigid in a certain way. Like absolutely, said, right? Yeah. Because you're taught a certain way. And over time, I've realized that the people that adopt a mentality like that stop growing at a certain point.
100%. Yeah.
And so I've watched it over the years. Like I've watched because when you're young, you just watch the older people. You watch your uncles. You watch just people that you admire and you look up to them, and their mentality a lot of times is closed. It's like this is the way it is, and a lot of times the way that it is because it's tradition, and tradition is passed down from some old motherfucker a long time ago. Like, I don't know who the fuck that dude is. Yeah. And it's like, how am I going to continue a tradition that was created by somebody that doesn't even exist anymore? And that I don't even know if now they were standing in front of me, if I would even listen to this guy. Yeah. So why the fuck would I just follow something just because I'm told that it's the way that it is? And so what I tell my kids is that it's like when it comes to creating your identity, it's compartmentalized from different things that you learn, right? And at a certain point, if you're that person that stops growing, I told my kids in like the example that I use is like video games, right? Mm-hmm. When you're playing like an RPG, you throughout the game you get armor, right? You'll find like the bottom piece armor, your chest plate armor, your armor on your arms, your helmet, and it's like and at a certain point you will have acquired a complete set, and that shit might be fucking pristine at all matches and shit, and you're like, you know what, I'm good. And then as you progress in the game, you might open a fucking chest and there's a fucking left arm right there of armor that's gonna give you +10, but it's gonna fuck up your fucking matching set. So a lot of people will be like, you know what, I'm keeping my matching set.
Yeah.
And people that have that growth mentality will replace that one and have that unmatched set in order to get that plus 10. And throughout time, you will continue to acquire different parts of the armor that's going to make it all out of whack.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, you're like plus 60. So you started at 100 plus, and now you're 100 plus 60 because you don't care about being wrong. You don't care about conforming to anything. All you care about is growth. And so that's, I'm obsessed with that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm obsessed with not ever becoming stagnant. I'm obsessed with always learning more. And the mentality that I always have when I talk to people is I always tell myself that anybody that you encounter has something that you don't have, some kind of knowledge. They might be retarded in most other ends. Can we say retarded?
Yeah, you can say retarded.
Yeah. So they might be retarded in every other aspect of their life, but they have that one little piece. And if you listen to them, you'll get that piece.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's you can't ever, look at somebody and be like, I have nothing to learn from this guy, because everybody has something. And the way that I always think about it is it's like a community of learning if you find yourself with like-minded people.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times that mentality that and also it takes a certain amount of vulnerability, right? So if everybody thinks that we all have the answers, and me and you sit here, we're not going to learn, because you're going to put on your ego and say, I know everything, and so am I, and then we're going to disagree on certain things, and then we're not going to move or budge from where we're at. And the mentality that I always like having is that I have a certain way of thinking, but it's not set in stone. So if in any part of my life I have an opinion, and I talk to somebody that brings a different opinion that is superior to my own, I will get rid of my opinion and I'll take yours.
Yeah.
And that'll be my opinion now.
Yeah.
And so I'm completely open to being wrong in any one of the aspects of life, and I'm completely open to learning and taking in a new way of thinking. And also, and I think nowadays more than before, there is an openness, especially amongst men, to learn from each other and to promote the fact that we're all struggling with the same things, right?
Yeah.
We all, if you ask any man, most of the times they're going to be struggling with, wanting to raise their children right, wanting to make more money, wanting to self-growth, wanting to just continually, be in a betterment mindset. And that only happens organically if we are all sharing the vulnerabilities as well. Mm-hmm. Because if we're like, oh no, I have my shit already set, then you're going to shut down, because you're not going to want to share your vulnerability if I'm not sharing mine. Yeah. And the example that I always give is that if we sit at a table, I think I've given you this example, but if we all sit at a table and there's 10 guys there, and you ask everybody how big their dick is, everybody's going to say 8 inches, right? And so, like, there's no way that everybody fucking here has 8 inch dicks. But if we're not talking about it, then we're not going to be able to fucking be like, okay, I had fucking 3, and then I grew that shit into a 4, and now we're fucking rolling, right? Now we're learning from each other, instead of all just saying that we all have the answers and not being open to growth. Yeah. And so there's no way that you have the answers to raising children. There's no way that I have all the answers. But if we talk and like, hey, I did this and I made this mistake, and then I share something with you, and then we get the ball rolling, and then something can.
I think that's huge. Like the ability to say that you're wrong or change your opinion, I think it's huge. I think if you're set in your own ways, things don't move forward. People don't progress. I mean, that's what happened during like the Dark Ages and all that stuff when it was going on in Europe. The church was the thing. And if you didn't believe in that, you just were pushed aside. And there was only a small set of free thinkers who continued to keep going. And that's where the Renaissance came from. Mm-hmm. And now I think now we're going through another Renaissance of we're not the greatest generation like the people from World War II. We're like the lost kids of the millennium, but a lot of us are thinking about these things and how to grow as people, how to grow as parents, how to grow as business people, and how to do all this. And that's really the point of me trying to have these conversations with people is to help other people grow through these kind of conversations. I don't have all the answers. I have answers in some things, and I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong. And you have answers on a lot of things, and especially like on this philosophical thinking. I want to take a step back, and I could be wrong, but I think your ability to learn and your ability to think came from a religion. because when you grew up studying a religion and being a servant to this religion for most of your life so far, right?
I think it mostly came from having a really rigid way of thinking, and kind of being told the way that you're supposed to. Everything goes and everything is already structured. Everything's built. You're not reinventing anything.
There's no room for growth and thought in that.
No, because it has to all be within the same category. So when I separated from that is when I was like, because I was so forced into a box. Then when I came out of it, I was like, I want everything. Yeah. Like I want to absorb everything now. And so that's what led to it, is that I continually look for different types of information because I want to grow in every way. And I'm going to be honest with you, when I barely started doing that, I would resist new ideas.
Really?
I remember listening to.
I would never guess that.
Yeah. So when that happened, I was introduced to podcasts and I was introduced to different books and stuff. I had never, like, I had read like in school, like Stephen King novels or whatnot, but nothing to do with growth. Right. And so when I started working with my buddy Kevin, he used to listen to a lot of podcasts, and he introduced me to podcasts. And I remember going back and I was listening. The first one I started was a Joe Rogan podcast, so I just started absorbing information. Yeah. I started from episode 1 and I just brought it up. And at a certain point, there was this guy. His name is God Saad.
Yeah, God Saad. Yeah.
And he has very particular ideas, and he's very open about criticizing like traditional like thinking and traditional religion and all stuff like that. I couldn't listen to the episode, dude. Like I was listening to it
because you were still kind of closed off.
Because he was contradicting, and what happens when you are really attached to an ideology, whether that's a religious ideology, a political ideology, or anything, when you're really attached to it, you feel as if it's you. So when somebody contradicts that, it's a personal attack on you, which in reality it's not. Yeah. It's entertaining the possibility of being wrong. But when somebody attacks something, well, you will consider it an attack if it's attached to your identity. Mm-hmm. So anything that people have attached to their identity will feel like a personal attack. Yeah. And it's not. Like me and you could have different ideas, but if you're attached so much to the idea that it's who you are, you're going to resist it. Right. And I think initially when you have a closed mindset, that's what happens. You resist ideas. And you're not going to grow from that. But I know that's where I was. And so when I was able to get over that hurdle is when I was able to be like, okay, I'm going to absorb more information. I'm going to consider the possibility that I might be wrong. And I've been wrong a lot of times. Yeah. And I've changed my perspective over and over and over. If you talk to me, I might have told you something 2 years ago. And throughout that learning process, I might be completely different when it comes to what I said. Yeah. And that's the part where people are like, oh, or you're wish-washy, or you back and forth. And it was like, you have to be. If you're going to grow, you have to be able to change your mind. Yes. And so I think that's the most important part of any person that wants to grow, is having the ability to be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that ties into like the changing of knowledge and the changing of ideas, ties into what I really wanted to talk to you about, which was fatherhood and raising children. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I said in the intro, I meant to. Also father, husband, and let's kind of start there. So when you first had your children, you were still attached to this ideology, and were you bringing them up the way you were brought up in it? Yeah. And then at some point, 8 years ago or 6 years ago, you decided to go on your own path. And was it hard to kind of sit your children down and say, hey, this is what we thought for X amount of years, and now it's time to have a different thought?
It was hard because, and I don't like talking shit, on the background or anything like that, because I think that anything that's part of who you are.
Well, it shaped you.
It shapes you. Yeah. So yeah, at a certain point, like I decided that I was going to go in a different direction, and I was honest. Like the oldest one, the only one capable of understanding was Isaac, because he was 10 years old. Yeah. Right? And so I sat him down and I said, you know what? I've been guiding you on this path for X amount of years, and I've gone to the point where I can no longer raise you in that direction because I don't feel 100% about it. And it would be disingenuous of me to continue to teach you something that I don't full-heartedly believe. Mm. And so I stopped. I said, we're not going to do this anymore. We're heading in this direction. And I've always been very open with my children as far as like me being an imperfect man, me having weaknesses, me having, that we're all learning at the same time. Yeah. And I've sat them down and I told them, this was years ago, but I sat them down and said, you know what? I'm raising you right now because I happen to be in this realm or whatever. I am the father figure in this realm. Like, we might be reincarnated, you might be the father next time. So as far as it stands now, I happen to be in this position, and it's my responsibility to raise you, and I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to be as fair as I can. But at any time, if you consider that there's unfairness happening, you can say, hey, Dad, I don't agree with this. Let's sit down. And if you can talk me into something else, or you convince me that I'm being unfair, I will change it.
Yeah.
I will change. So I am forced to take action based on circumstances and the evidence that I have. So if you're fighting on a very basic level, you might be fighting with your brother over something, and I might jump in and yell at you because I saw you doing something, and he might have deserved it. And if you sit down and be like, hey, this motherfucker did this, and that's why I socked him. Like, hey, you deserve to get socked. You know? Like it is what it is. But I told them at any point, understand that just as you're learning to be a human because you're growing up, I'm learning to be a father. Like this is the first time you growing up into being an adult. This is the first time that I'm being a father. And especially when you come from an environment where I didn't have that, it's almost like you have to fragment everything from bits and pieces of yeses and nos, like positives and negatives of what you see, right? So the closest thing that I had to father figures were uncles, because my dad was around until I was 10, and then they broke up, and then my dad went to go do his own thing, and he was like, he kind of got lost in it for a while. Now we have a really good relationship, but for the amount of time from 10 years old into adulthood and beyond, I didn't have that guidance. So because I didn't have that guidance, I always, the way that I look at fatherhood in my personal in my life is that I have had to basically Frankenstein together what a father is based on my observations of other people. So I saw the positives, I saw the negatives, I saw them grow up. You know, I saw uncles, you know, raising their children a certain way. I saw the relationships, I saw the things that I would want in a relationship with my child, the things that I don't want. And one specific thing that I've noticed that is very important is the transition between raising a child and then allowing that child to then become an adult and then becoming equals and accepting that they're now your equals. Because a lot of time, fathers specifically, mothers too, but I can only speak on the father side. What they'll do is that no matter how old you are, I'm still the father. Yeah. And then that makes it so we're never going to be friends, because then like you're coming, I might have my house and my family, and you're coming over and I'm picking things up and making them the way you want them because you're still the father. And it's and I realized at a certain point that in order for the relationship between a father and son to evolve into the next step, you have to surrender the father role. Yeah. And I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. Yeah. But I've seen it surrender, and I've seen it surrender smoothly, and I've seen it not surrender at all. Mm-hmm. And when the man is not willing or able to surrender at all, that relationship will never be what it could be. Yeah. Like you're never going to see your son as what the goal ultimately is that as a father you will raise a superior man. Yeah, I was just going to say that I think that is the goal, is to raise your children to be better than you are. Yes. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't know if I'm getting there yet, but that's the goal, is to make a more complete human than I am. Yes. Right. And then after that, if you accomplish that, you have another fucking soldier in your clan, right? Now you have this intelligent man that you've been raising that has his own ideas, and now he can go out into the world, experience life in his own way, and then bring some of that back, which is the synergistic relationship that you have with other men when you allow that to happen. Yeah. It's like no matter how much I think I know or how much I've experienced in my life, you're living a completely different life with different experiences, and you're bringing back information that I would otherwise never have. So if you're going out there, you know, bringing back information, I'm going out there bringing it back, and we all bring it here and pull it, then we're going to sort through it and get the best. I hope that's something that other groups of men do, or other groups of people in general do, because we do that quite often. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times there's a lot of drinks involved, but we get to a point where we're all sharing ideas and thoughts, and then I think it makes us, like, as a collective, be better. Yes. Yeah. I think that's important. I'm trying to process all the stuff you just said, dude. So in that regard, like the kids are growing, and the way that I've always thought about fatherhood is not in an overbearing way, right? Because you're basically what you are is a guide. You're not a drill sergeant, right? So you put them within parameters to keep them safe and to keep them on that mindset. Mm-hmm. So they might do this within the parameters.
Yeah.
And eventually, and this interaction might happen once every 2 months, maybe 6 months. Mm-hmm. You might watch them and they're doing fine. And then every once in a while we'll start doing this. And your job as a father is just to do this.
Yeah.
It's not to hold them and push them through it. It's just for you to notice that they're going off too far in this direction and to bounce them back for them to continue to grow. Because they're also on their own path.
Yeah.
Right. So when you let that happen, that person is going to become their own individual versus somebody that's a father pleaser. Right?
Yeah.
You don't want them to be a father pleaser. You want them to respect you and you want them to grow into adulthood, but also understand that you're also growing a future friend and a future partner. So you need to understand that you're not going to be completely hands-on all the time.
Yeah.
And one thing that I learned, shout out to my boy Tyler, he moved to Tennessee recently, but I told him this. I said, so you have bits and pieces, and right now he's got young children, and I have older children. But I saw the interaction that he had with his brother, and I was like, I want that relationship for my sons. Mm-hmm. And I saw the relationship that his dad had with the sons, and I said, I want that relationship with my sons. Mm-hmm. And they're fully grown. They're 30 years old, and the relationship that they have is what I want.
Yeah.
And so I watched them. I asked them questions. One of the questions that I asked them was, when you're a father, you're in a position of power, physically, mentally, and everything, right? A lot of times what insecure men will do in that position was they'll squash the kid, right? Yeah. The kid's going to show, initiative in certain things. They're going to show, they're going to be rebellious. They're going to have certain traits, and that you have to manage very carefully, because not only are you, like, let's say you have a personality that questions everything. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be as easy to deal with, but I need you to cultivate that, because that's going to help you outside, right? Yeah. So I can't kill that and I can't smash it, because just because it's harder for me to deal with doesn't mean that you're not going to need it later on. So I'm going to let you have it, and I'm going to understand it, and I'm going to talk to you about it, because later on that like, not necessarily confrontational, but just that grit, if you have that grit, if you have that no back down mentality, I want you to have that, not only in my sons, but my daughter as well. A very strong personality, because I want you to take that into the real world, because that's going to do you a lot of good out there. So in the meantime, while I'm raising you, I have to keep brackets on it, because I can't have you overstepping boundaries, but at the same time, I can't kill that, because I have to allow you to take it into adulthood. And so that's the part where a lot of times it requires balance, right? Because a lot of times it's not easy. You have your own emotions, you have your own outbursts, you have your own particulars that upset you and things like that. And a lot of times the child that's most likely is going to give you the most problems. But understanding that is going to help you go into that world, where you are allowing them to also grow at the same time that you're raising them.
Yeah. Yeah. Taking a step back, where you said earlier, is like, if you're trying to raise your sons or your children, you're trying to raise them into being better versions of yourself, so that they're like soldiers in your army. You see them like equal. Like I have that mentality where I was pretty much raised without a father, and I didn't see that. The only time my dad was around, he was the hammer. And I think that's the wrong way to go about it. And then luckily, as I got older, I met a mentor, and he taught me a lot of things. And in the beginning, we bumped heads a lot. Then we realized that we were on the same path to grow together. And he shared a lot with me. And then towards the end, it's like, I'll die for this fucking guy, right? The whole time, though, he was just trying to make me a better person. And I think that's huge for people to realize that there's people out there helping you, and that not everybody has all the answers. And if you can take from your father's experience in this way, or your mentor's experience, and then grow your own experiences and bounce them back, again, it's just the exchange of information and the exchange of ideas. I think it's something we all need to grow through.
And back to what you said about the hammer, right? So a lot of men, because of traditional upbringing, feel that the role of a father is to be the hammer, but it's not. And at the end of the day,
I believe you're right.
You're gonna, if you crush that kid, there's a turning point, right? Like I mentioned before, you have everything on your side. You have the strength, you have the intelligence, you have the know-how, you have all these things that you have acquired because you're an older man.
Yeah.
And you don't use those things to make them feel any less. you have to pour into them. And one of the questions that I asked my buddy about was there a certain point in his life where he felt that he needed to puff his chest and fight his dad? And the reason I asked that is because I think that whoever the person in the position of power, however they treat the person that is under them, when that person becomes in a position of power, once he's bigger than you, stronger than you, more intelligent than you, if you were a hammer to him, that motherfucker would be a hammer to you.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. Right? So that's what's going to ruin the relationship.
Yeah.
It's like you were beating his ass, you were fucking talking shit, you were always pushing him down, and then eventually he's going to grow anyways. And then he's going to be like, well, fuck my dad.
Yeah.
You know, like he was never in my corner. Like he used all of his attributes to pound me down. And now I'm going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, fuck him. But when you don't do that, you end up with this situation where that transition will happen and you have no animosity towards your father. And you're just like, you know what? I understand that I'm taking this role now. He's the older man now, and I'm the young man. I'm stronger. I'm everything. Like, what did Tito Ortiz say? I'm stronger, I'm faster, I'm younger.
Did his son?
No, than himself.
He said
he was talking about himself. He's like, I'm faster, I'm stronger than 10 years ago, I'm younger. He's like,
that guy also said that he can't wait to bury his children and outlive them and shit. Tito Ortiz is a wild boy.
Yeah, like listen to that guy because he always goes in that shit.
Yeah.
But so that's one thing that I understood. And if I want a wholesome relationship with my children, I have to recognize that, and I have to know that I'm guiding and growing them. I'm not beating them. Yeah. And so that's going to allow them to grow into that where we're going to be friends when we grow up. Yeah. Ideally, because everything is a theory unless you prove it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you have. Yes. To raise a perfect person, nobody knows how to do that, and you have to put all these theories and these ideas together to grow. I don't think you'll ever be able to raise a perfect person, but to raise someone that you can count on, I think is also giant.
And I think, and that's where you have to have the humility to understand up to what point you have some kind of answers and what part not. Yeah. So whenever somebody asks me about raising children, I will only talk about as far as I've gotten, because I don't know past that. I have a theory. Yeah. And the time that I probably started doing this probably like 8 years ago. Right. I went on this path and I'm like, you know what? I have a theory and I'm going to go with it because everything is a theory until proven. Right. And up until this point, I think I have been successful for the most part up until this point. So now I will argue this fucking back part because I have gotten this chunk and I have, and it's not only one child, I have 4 children. So they're all in different developing stages, all different personalities, and I'm pushing them all to be better than me. Right. So when it comes to this part of it, I will talk on that part. When it comes to that part, it's only theoretical. Yeah. Just like when I was beginning this process, it was theoretical. And what I always tell people is it takes like 10 years for you to be able to prove a theory. But once I prove this theory, and unless somebody comes, like one time I got to argue with my sister about it. She's like, not talking shit. I love you. But she has small children, and basically what I've always told my children is that you come first. Like, because in life, you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of others. So be generous, be kind, be giving, be loving, be all these things, but understand that at the end of the day, you have to put yourself in the priority always. And so that's going to allow you to pour into the people that are under you. If you, it's like they say on the plane, right? You put your oxygen first. Because if you put it on somebody else, motherfucker, you might not make it, right? And if you don't make it, that other motherfucker's not going to make it because you're trying to put it on them while you still don't have oxygen. And that's not the way to go about it. You have to take care of yourself in order to take care of others. And that means that you have to be selfish in a certain way, right? If you bring it down to the rudimentary level, it's selfish. But in reality, it's selfishness with the purpose of having enough abundance to give, right? But in the beginning, if there's a conflict of whether you have to feed yourself or feed somebody else, you have to feed yourself first because you can't help that other person. And her thought process on that was that it was too cold of a mentality, and that, teaching children that they're supposed to, give first and all these things. I was like, no, because you're going to get eaten alive. Yeah. Like, just because you have the ability to give first, not that it's not a noble thing to do, not everybody's worth giving to. And how are you supposed to, decide which people are worth pouring into and which not? So unless you're in a position to pour down, and if they're not able to absorb it, discard them, you cannot pour into them before you pour into yourself. And so that's what the argument it was. And then I was like, I have a fucking 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is that?
When you had this argument.
Yeah, I had already raised
one.
This was probably 2 years ago, so I had already been on this path for a while. And I was like, you ain't got the ass to sway. I've been doing this longer than you. You know, so it's like I will fight this part because I have theories that I've proven. But past that part, I don't. And that's why I mentioned to John one time we were having a conversation, and I asked John, I was like, well, you would have more information about a grown child more than me because I don't have any grown children.
Yeah.
Ooh, soon.
I remember you guys having that conversation.
One of them's going to be 18 yet, but I will always take a step back to another man that has potentially more information because he's living that right now.
Earlier you talked about trying to keep your children in line, like in these bumpers. If you think about it like a bowling alley, instead of having the gutters, you put up the bumpers and you try to persuade them in the right direction. You just mentioned that you've been a father for about 18 years, and you have a senior in high school, a freshman in high school. Is your daughter in middle school yet?
She's 11.
Yeah, so she's like in 5th grade or 6th grade, right?
6th grade.
Okay, and then you have a son who's not even in school yet, right?
Yeah.
Have your ideologies and your methods changed throughout the years? Because obviously, when you're raising your oldest son, you were just learning. This was your first time. Well, now you're 10-yeared in, or 10-year, not 10 years. You have basically 18 years of experience in this. Have you changed your ideas, or have you tried to shape your youngest son separately from your shaping your oldest son? And do you think that you're going to be able to grow an even better person than your oldest son because you have all the experiences of what not to do and what to do, and you can put it into your youngest son as you raise him?
And also because even now, even though the older brothers are not completely developed, they are already pouring back into the little.
I noticed that a lot.
So if I've noticed that situation happening as well, and I allow them to have part in the raising of that child. Yeah, it's limited, obviously, because I have to check them and tell them, like, for example, so the kid, the youngest one is 5, right? And I structure my household a certain way where I believe traditionally that some things are a man's job, and I'm not a bigot or a fucking misogynist.
He is a bigot and a misogynist.
I might be a bigot and a misogynist. But traditionally, I have certain things in the house that I will not allow my daughter to do. My daughter doesn't pick up dog shit. My daughter doesn't bring groceries out from the car. Yeah. My daughter doesn't take trash out from the house. It's like, that's your guys' job, and I understand that, right? So I've made that clear division between the two. So it's like now, because in the beginning, you'd be like, oh, she's not. No, she doesn't help. First of all, you do these things because these are a man's job. And then 2, you guys can put hands on each other. You can never put hands on her, ever. I don't care what the fuck she's doing. I don't care if she's putting hands on you, which she doesn't because she's not raised that way either. But even if she did, you keep your hands to yourself. And so the baby is growing up, but he's the youngest in the family. And so, and they're raised to a particular level now, but they don't understand what led them there. So they have their own methods and whatever. And so I think one time they were taking out the trash and they start pulling them. They're like, hey, like, motherfucker, you got to pull trash too. Yeah. And he's like, no, I'm a baby. Or I was like, you're not a baby. You're a baby when it's convenient to be a baby. Yeah. It was like, and you're a grown kid when you want shit. So they're like, they were kind of drilling them and like, hey, this and this and this and this. And I was like, no. I was like, that's not how. I was like, you have to pull him with your example. You don't pull him by forcing him to do something. It's going to resist you the whole way. So you have to be like, hey, talk to him like, we're men, we're boys, and you're a young man. You're going to do what we do, and this is what we do. We take trash out. We pick up dog shit. This is what we do. And so that's going to start, so I talked to him. I talked to Isaac because they were on him. They were like, hey, motherfucker, like, you're doing this shit. And he's like, no, he's resisting. I'm like, no, that's not the way, dude. Like, the way is that you have to show him by example, and slowly he's gonna follow suit. Yeah. Because that's the way the best way to teach somebody something is with example.
That's a very interesting way of thought. So you've taught your oldest son the best you can teach him this far. Yeah. And now he's already pouring back into the cup of your youngest son. Yes.
And then I'm pouring, and then the other one's pouring, so we're all pouring.
Did you do that on purpose, or is that just how it's
just how it turned out? Because so I noticed that was going on recently, like within the year. I noticed that they were also.
Well, your youngest son has transitioned from being a baby into a kid now. Yeah. And so it's time for him to get that.
Yeah. It's time to start getting that. Yeah. And now I noticed that these guys are doing the same thing to him. Yeah. Or they play fight with him. And then while they're playing fight with him, I was like, yeah, but you got to give him slack. Like, you got to let him defend himself. You got to just fuck him up. Like, it's like, you guys are fucking, they're not beating him, but they're beating him up and he can't win at all.
Like, why are you hitting yourself?
Yeah, it's like he's trying to fight back and he can't. Okay, hit him, fight with him a little bit, let him realize that he has strength to fight back, and then push him back. Give him enough pushback so he realizes that he's also got capabilities. Yeah. Right. And so you're building his confidence at the same time that you're showing him what the potential that he could be is, which is your version, because he's gonna look up to you. You're his older brother, you know.
I think that's probably where I missed in life, is like, I didn't want to have children, and I have a son, and I never wanted to have another one. And I think you need some camaraderie in the household to become a greater person. Like when I was young, my brother is 5 years older than me, so I'm 11. He's already out of high school, or he's close to being out of high school. And I didn't really grow. I grew up basically alone. And I think the fact that you have this little army at your house is making every person a little bit better and a little bit better. And then you have, besides you being like you're the shepherd of your family, but your oldest son is like the steward. Mm-hmm. When you're not there, he is the shepherd of the family. And I think that's an amazing thing to see from the outside. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anybody's told you that, but I'm around your children all the time. A lot of us are together pretty often. I see your children probably once a week, and I see them together as a little unit, and I see how they operate and how they all operate together. And it's a really cool thing to see. That's why I wanted to talk to you about this kind of thing.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you said, it becomes like it's a unit that's working together, and then you feed into it. Yeah. You see everybody's strong suits. You see where they're weak, and then they supplement each other. Mm-hmm. But that's how it's supposed to work. I think, like nobody gets left behind, and I think that if there's any deficiencies in any one of the kids or with any one of their personalities, they have to be attended to, because otherwise those deficiencies will grow into resentment and bitterness towards you,
100%.
And so you have to keep an eye on it. And I had a conversation. We were talking about it earlier with my middle kid, the 14-year-old, and it's like I kind of noticed that where it's like sometimes when you're a teenager, you grow into this. You're growing. You're having your own ideas, and then you look at your dad and you're like, "Well, this motherfucker don't know everything. He's wrong or this or he's like whatever," because you're under their reign. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, you're gonna view it from a different perspective. And this happens every so often with him, because I notice him heading in that direction, and I'll just get up in the. I always tell I have this thing. I don't know if it happens to anybody else, but every time that I wake up in the morning, it's like I'm a completely really high energy, really positive, really always up here mentally. Like I'm always locked in. But my lowest moment is always in the morning. And I don't know if it's because when I wake up, my thoughts are all processing, or like maybe you go to sleep and you go outside of your avatar body for a little bit and then you come back. Yeah. But I have to gather my ideas again, and I self-examine where I'm going wrong, what I'm doing, where I'm fucking up, and I try to bring everything back into a unit again. And a lot of times that self-examination shows me that I need to pay particular attention to something that's going on at this very moment that I might have been watching for a while, because I'm very observative. So I watch them and I let them. If like him, a little bit of attitude, a little bit of back and forth, a little bit of not agreeing, I kind of like, I would be in a room and I'll look over and I'll catch him kind of like side-eyeing me and shit. And I'll be like, okay, there's something going on and I have to address it. And sometimes you don't know how that's going to happen. You don't know how you're going to address it. You don't know what you're going to say. You don't know how they're going to respond. You don't know if they're going to open up to you or not. So it's like a lot of times you procrastinate on it because you don't have all the answers. And it's a daunting task to have to basically come up with a speech that you're going to have to give to somebody to rally them up again. Yeah. And so today in the morning, I woke up and I think it's probably like 5:30, and I was like tossing and turning, coming back to sleep. And because of that was lingering over my head. And so 6 a.m. came, and he's been a night owl. So he's been waking up, and I get up in the morning and I knock on his door and I was like, hey, you awake? And he was just playing video games. And I was like, hey, I'll pull up a chair and we'll talk to you right now. And sure enough, like I went in there at 6 a.m. I talked to him for like an hour. I kind of told him my where I'm at mentally, like what I've been noticing on him, and what you have to say about that. Like, do you have any questions for me? And it's like they don't talk as much, right? Yeah. Like teenage boys don't talk as much, but he did he did kind of share where he was at and what was bothering him and stuff. So we had a nice back and forth. And this happens every so often, especially with him, because I notice him kind of going sideways. The last time it happened, I think I just got up in the morning on a Sunday and I was like, hey, we're going to Starbucks, and I just fucking just take him by himself, sit down, and then we're having a drink, and then we just talk. I just let him know where I'm at. I let him know where I'm noticing. I let him know that everything that I do comes from a loving place, and that I'm not right all the time, and that I'm gonna have my own shit going on at the same time, and so that understand that don't look at me as a complete product. Look at me as a work in progress, just as well as you're a work in progress. And so, but it went well.
Yeah, earlier when we were talking about this, when we were kind of warming up for this podcast, we were talking about how you can't let yourself be the villain in his eyes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way I grew up, was my dad was always the villain, right? There was never a time where I really looked at him and said, yeah, that's awesome, that's my dad. I think that's really good that you're noticing it, and then that also that you have the balls to step up, pull your son aside and said, let's talk about this. Let me share where I am. And then I want you to share where you are, because I think that's going to grow. It's going to help you have a better son, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's still going to have the opportunity to make mistakes, but hopefully that he's close enough with you that he can make a mistake, come to you, and then say, hey, I made a mistake. I went down the wrong path. Can you guide me back to the right way? And that, having that the multiple lines of communication, I think that's a must. I think if you're raising children, you have to have an open line of communication with your sons or daughters to know that where you're coming from, and that you're willing to listen to where they're coming from.
And it's not easy because every time that you do that, you have to also take a step back, because you have to give them the room, right? Yeah. And what I mentioned about being the villain, it's like when you're growing up as a teenager, you're in any hero story, there has to be some kind of like a villain,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that could be a number of things, but if I do notice that it's becoming me, then I have to address it, because I can't let that. That's gonna become the breaking point between something that I observed that could have been talked about and fixed. That a lot of times I think the mistake that we make as fathers is that we don't address it and we let it happen.
Yeah.
And my perspective on by watching other people was that a lot of times men don't raise children. The children grow up in their house.
Yeah.
Which is a completely different thing. Just because you're going out to work and you're providing, and you put a roof over their head and you're buying them everything that you need, doesn't mean you're raising them.
Yeah.
And then what you find yourself is you end up with a 15, 16-year-old kid who you don't know because they grew up in your house.
Yeah, that's where I struggle too. I constantly think about that. It's like, am I raising my son, or is he growing up next to me, right? And I try to, anytime I have the interaction or the thought where I think he's just growing up in my house, I try to rein myself back in and try to raise my son better, right? It's hard to do that because you think you have to realize your own failures and to admit that you're wrong for that to happen. And I think a lot of fathers miss that. Fathers don't want to admit that they're wrong or that they failed, and that we're doing this as a collective. I don't think anybody can grow singularly by themselves in a vacuum. You need this collective thought. You need this hive mind to grow as a person, as a father, as a husband, as a martial artist. Any of this stuff, you need it to grow.
And I think that the martial arts comes in really handy when it comes to that, because it's I think we talked about it before, but it's a simulated struggle. Mm-hmm. And what I told Kane this morning is that you have all these things going on, and you're living your own world. I say I'm part of your world, just like you're part of my world. And he was playing a video game. That was the Ghost of something. It's a samurai game. Mm-hmm. And I told him, just like you play in this game and you level up your character, the same tenacity that you have to grow that character, you have to be investing in yourself, because this world is created in a way that is of immediate self gratification, and it's all available to you. If you want to feel what it's like to level up in life, you have to put in a lot of work. Yeah. Right. But in order to feel like you level up in a video game, you have to put a little bit of work. You just sit there and then you level up in the video game, and it'll give you that same endorphin that it is from growth. It'll give it to you from a video game. Yeah. The same thing as I told him, you are creating yourself into the best version of yourself, and understand video games are a pastime, but also understand that what you're doing to that character, you must do to yourself. Which means that as you're sitting here, you can't sit here 15 hours and play this video game. You can sit here 2 hours and be like, hey, it's time for me to get that workout in. Yeah. You go and you work on yourself, and then you come back.
Yeah.
But allow yourself to give yourself that growth in the real world, because in the real world is where your real character is. It's an avatar. Yeah. That's an avatar, and you have an avatar, and this avatar cannot be neglected.
Yeah.
I said, so the same amount of work that you're willing to put into that character, you need to put into yourself. And also the conversation about all the self gratification when it comes to playing video games, when it comes to like now phones and then the readily available internet and pornography and all that shit that is now available. It robs people of growth because that immediate self gratification that otherwise you would have to build your character to make yourself attractive to a girl. If you're attracted to the girl, you no longer have to do that, because now you can just go watch pornography and that's it.
I've had that exact thought recently the last couple of months. As we're getting, this is going to come out right before the new year, and I've been thinking about that. It's like, how am I going to adjust my life to be further along in business, further along in life in this next coming year? Because all of us people we're always waiting for Monday to start, right? And I've been thinking about that a lot, and I thought about it almost in the exact terms, because I play a game, and in the game you have to level up all these things in order to make it even competitive. And I was thinking about that. I was like, how am I going to level myself up to be more competitive on the next level? What's the next thing? How do I become a better husband, a better father, a better business person, a better martial artist? How do I do all those at once? But then how do I also do them to make myself better? That's the inner struggle I'm having with myself. And do I let some things go? Do I try to grow more? Do I get rid of my own free time in order not to let the other things go? And that's where I'm struggling right now, personally.
Yeah. Well, it's constant, right? Yeah. Because you might find yourself in like a good stride. You might have a good 2-3 weeks where you're disciplined, you're dedicated, you're not wasting any time, and then the next week after that you might fall off, and you might not have the drive to do it that week. And I think that's where the discipline comes in, because most of the time you don't want to do the shit, but the shit that's worth acquiring requires a lot of work, and on a day-to-day basis doesn't feel good. It feels like shit, right? It's like it's forcing yourself to do the things that you need to do, the baby steps, in order to acquire the bigger goal. Right. But then also fall in love with the process, because the process is going to make 95% of the days, and the goals themselves are only going to make the 5%, or even less than that in most cases. So being goal driven is not something that I particularly am interested in as much as I am loving processes. Yeah. And loving processes is understanding that you're going to take the baby steps regardless of whether there is a goal at the end or if there's a reward at the end. Mm-hmm. And there always is. But just having your mind on the goal, on the reward at the very end, seems so far, right? It's like jiu-jitsu. You're gonna start as a white belt, and you see people wearing a black belt, and you're like, "Fuck, I want that." But at the end of the day, like, how many days did that person dedicate where they didn't want to do it? Like, how many workouts? How many times going to jiu-jitsu that you fucking hated it? How many times did you get smashed? How much price did that person pay for that? Yeah. And it's a lot. Right? So wanting something worthwhile is always going to come with the amount of work that it requires to get it. It doesn't, there's no shortcuts to anything in life. Yeah. Right? So having that mentality, I think, is what helps me try to stay on track. Not that I don't fall off too. Like, I'll fall off. Like, I had the same thing as you this year. I have a good stride, and then I got sick, and then I was out for like 2 months, and I was like, I wasn't able to train as much. Like, pretty much like 2 months went to waste because I got sick, and I'm still lifting and doing stuff like that. I never completely drop off everything, but just where I wanted to be in my cardio, where I wanted to be, skill wise. And it's like, it's frustrating because when you find yourself on a low, building yourself back up to where you feel like you're enjoying it again takes a while. And so that's where a lot of people quit, because then if you give yourself an out, you're going to take it. Yeah. Your mind is created to self-preserve. Right. So if you give yourself an out, if you're chilling at home and you're just like, you know what, I got a lot of shit to do on my phone, make jiu-jitsu, you're not going to go. Yeah. Because your mind's going to be like, no, you're right. And just fuck everything outside. Fuck all that. You go tomorrow. But there is no tomorrow. Like, every single day is worth something. Every little grain of salt that you put is going to accumulate into what you want to create. Yeah. And so just having that mentality, I think nowadays it's like, it's frustrating, because I tell you from my perspective, when you, like, I've always struggled, but the biggest struggle that I have in jiu-jitsu or anything is cardio, right? And we were talking with Chamisa the other day about running and stuff like that. I was like, what it is that you hate the most is what you need the most. And I know
Yeah.
that I need to run, even though I suck at running and my mile is horrible. It's like I need to do that in order to build my cardio, because you know how frustrating it is to know you have the ability to do something and not the tank to do it.
Yeah.
It's like I have to gauge my tank, because if I explode and move too much, I'm going to lose it, and then I'm not going to be able to fucking roll efficiently.
If you take it back to the to the jiu-jitsu perspective of that, it's like when you first started, you knew that you needed to develop an armbar. You need to develop some sort of submission. But you don't know how to do it, but it's fun. So you're willing to go in there and grind it out until you develop some sort of game. Whereas running is not fun. Mm-hmm. Grinding out your business is not fun. Like trying to do what you can do to get from white belt to blue belt. That's very hard in business. When you get to blue belt or purple belt, things start to coast. You're already there. But the same thing in business, the same thing in life. To get from white belt to the first colored belt, that's the grind. And from blue to purple, that's the grind. And that's, again, same thing in business, same thing in life. You just have to push yourself through it so you can get to the point where you're growing automatically. It just happens. Yeah. Same thing with running. You got to go out there. I mean, I got to go out there too. We all got to go out there and try to jog a quarter mile. See if we can jog a quarter mile. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll walk the rest of it. But we're going to jog that first one. And then let's see if I can get half a mile, 3/4 of a mile, right? And jog it out. And just, I think that's where we all need to push ourselves to, is to force ourselves to do the thing we don't want to do in order to be who we want to be. And you're never going to get to who you want to be if you don't do the things you don't want to do.
Yeah. And I think, and I'm already getting to the point where I'm learning from my kids, because Isaac specifically, like what we do now is that he's in wrestling now. So we'll go to tournaments sometimes. And then on the drive back, he'll start telling me like mentally where he was at. Yeah. And he tells me that specifically when it comes to wrestling tournaments, they're grind. It's a grind, and they're fucking like, it takes a lot of pulling from deep to get to that, because there's like 5-6 matches. It's like after 2 matches, like, well, you don't want to fight no more. Yeah. But understand that everybody else is also not wanting to fight no more, and whoever has the most grit is gonna win it. And so he was telling me that the difficult things that he puts himself through now give him that mental fortitude in order to push through when it comes to something like that. Like, this motherfucker gets up in the morning and does cold plunges in the pool every day during the winter. He gets up from that. Yeah, he does this. I've gone out there with him. I touched the water. I'm like, nah, fuck all. But he young man's game. Yeah, he gets up in the morning. I don't know if he's doing it every day now, but he was doing it every day. I haven't been keeping track of him, but he gets up in the morning before school, does the cold plunge, comes back inside. He gets a workout in, takes a shower, and he walks to school, does his school, and then he goes to jiu-jitsu. I mean, not jiu-jitsu. He goes to wrestling practice for 2 hours. And he does that every single day, or whenever it's on season. He does it the days that they do it. And then every once in a while, I'll bring him in the garage, and then we'll get a little workout together, which I do that for my enjoyment as well as them growing. And that's the part where I think it's important to pour into yourself, because the things that you enjoy automatically start merging with the things that you enjoy with them. Yeah. And even though it might just be a workout to you, right? It might just be like you getting them in the garage, which is, I do this on a regular basis. Like I'll be chilling and I'll be like, you know what, let's get a workout on it. And I'll hit them up. I'll be like, hey, let's go in the garage, and we'll go in there. It might be 30 minutes. It might be an hour, and we'll go in there and we'll hit pads, or we'll get a lift in together. And it's like, these are the things that I do for my enjoyment. That's why I say, like, it's somewhat of a selfish pursuit that also benefits the people around you. Because if I hated doing all these things, or if I wasn't, involved in them, I wouldn't enjoy them. Yeah. But because I am, like, I have a really good time when I do these things. Like, I'll go in there, I have all the shit. I have all the pads, I have the fucking body thing, I have everything. So I'll bring them in there, and then we'll get a workout in. It might just be like, 2-3 rounds of it, and then they'll go back inside. And at the same time, the baby's out there, and he's trying to lift kettlebells and shit.
That's funny. I wanted to talk about that, because ever since I've known you, you've always had like this lifting page online. And when Max was still in diapers, he was like out there trying to lift kettlebells, and that's because you're leading by an example. You're showing that this is what we do, and then the littlest one is already picking up on it.
Yeah, and then even with the other boys, like, he'll go in the garage. Like, I don't force them. I do force them in a sense, especially the boys, because I never had the things available to me to train and to do martial arts and to do any sports or anything like that. But I believe that it's fundamental for a man to know how to fight in some kind of martial art. You have to have that. So as a young man, that's not an option for them. You have to pick a martial art. You have to be training in something. You have to know how to fight, because I think that not only for the physical aspect of it, for the mental fortitude that it's going to bring you to be able to do that confidence that you get over it is going to carry you through your entire life. And so for me, that's important. So that's not an option. Being in a martial art and training some kind of self-defense is not an option for them. So eventually the baby will do it. I'm not forcing them now, because I'm a true believer in that it has to be organic, and they have to watch it by they have to see the example, and they have to be self-driven in order to jump into something. And then you guide them, right? Because you already have all the information. I was telling Kane in the morning, I was like, for you, like, I've been on this growth pursuit for a long time, so I absorb a lot of information. And so you can bring me any subject and I'll know something about it. I might know everything about it. But if you want to work out, I can make you a workout. If you want a diet, I can make you a diet. Like, I can do all these things because I'm preparing myself in order to pour into you when you're ready to be poured into. And so the same thing with the baby. Like, he'll go into the garage, he might put the pads down, I want to fight, and we'll fight for like 5 minutes and he'll be done. But eventually that's gonna give him that drive to want to take interest into something that I want him to take interest to. But it's gonna be organic, and it's gonna be on his own.
You know, I think you said the learning how to fight is not an option. And I think that's, if somehow you stumbled across this podcast and you're thinking, what are these idiots talking about? Why do you need to learn how to fight? You need to learn how to fight to know when not to fight. And you can use that in business. You can use it in life. Like, the guys on the streets who are most willing to start throwing punches are the guys who don't know how to fight. And the people who know how to fight, they're already proven. They don't need to prove it to somebody. They already know in their minds that they know what they can do to you, and they have the ability to de-escalate situations. And that can carry over into life. It can carry over into so many different things, because you don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to prove yourself on the most like animalistic part of our nature. Our nature is just to go smash something and move on. But when you already know that you can smash someone, you don't get any gratitude out of it. You don't get like that serotonin rush of being able to do it to somebody. You just know it's a foregone conclusion that I know how to fight. You don't know how to fight. This is what's going to happen, and I don't need to prove that. Versus the guys who haven't lived that struggle, who haven't built their mind. You know, the speech, you got to fortify your mind, and all that stuff comes through learning how to fight. I think that's a big thing to teach your sons, especially, because I think it's gonna get them out of situations that could be bad versus going down the wrong path of not learning that.
But also, I think that understanding that when you're in a martial art, you know where you're at all the time, because you have to constantly be proving where you're at. Yeah. And there's no lying to yourself when it comes to that. Yeah. So it builds your character, and at the same time, it gives you, and at least in my personal experience, it gives you a sense of imposter syndrome, where I always know I could be at a certain level, but also I'm not good enough yet.
I'm living through that right now. I was talking to someone through the internet the other day, and I'm just always trying to make this guy laugh on the internet. And I said something to him, and he said, "Hey, dude, come train with us. I'll let you beat me up." And he's like, "You're high level," because he knows that I'm a brown belt. He's like, "You're high level. We don't got to fight. I'll let you beat me up in front of everyone. Everyone will think this." And I'm like, "Fuck. Now I got to go prove that I'm. Now I have to walk into this place with a brown belt and be a brown belt. Am I really a brown belt? Am I a brown belt at this school?" Those are the things you constantly go through. Man, again, is another situation where I am in life, trying to get to the next level, but to earn that next thing.
But I think it's healthy. It's healthy to not feel like you're done.
Yeah, of course.
And that imposter syndrome is what that gives you. It's like I need to be at a certain level, but also I have so much room to grow. Am I really this? Yeah. Right. Which is why, like, I saw a TikTok the other day. This guy talking about fighting, like you just said, right? The people that don't train are willing to fight because they think they're a certain level, or they at least have the perspective that people that do train are walking around thinking they're going to beat everybody up. Yeah. And it's like, you don't want to do that. Like, you don't want to engage anybody, because one, you're used to training with trained people and getting fucking mopped up all the time. So it's like, you know what that feels like, and that's not going to be that person in the street. Yeah. But you have this mentality where you do not want to engage this, especially in not in a controlled environment. And also, when it comes back to what you were saying about the mindset, is like when somebody's physically attacking you, everything else gets toned down. So anything else in life, if you're in a job, if you're dealing with somebody's microaggressions, if you're dealing with any kind of other human interaction that is not fighting, is completely toned down when it comes to physically being attacked by somebody. And if you're physically getting attacked by somebody 4 to 5 times a week, everything is going to be easier in life. And that's just the way that's the biggest carryover from martial arts is the understanding of where you actually are, what your capabilities are, and then also that nothing in life is as serious as somebody trying to whoop your ass. You already got your ass whooped. So
you've been on the bottom enough.
You know what it's like.
Man, I think we can continue to go on. I try to keep these around an hour so people will watch the whole thing because especially this podcast, I think the beginning is as good as the end, especially with talking to you. So I kind of want to end it there, and maybe we'll have you on in the future, but we'll pick another subject. This one I wanted to try to keep it to fatherhood and growing people. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing some wisdoms with us. And I think a lot of people. I think even if only 20 people watch this, I think every person will get something.
There better be more than 20 people.
Cool. That's all I got. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.